problem always is how to end the conflict. So with what's happening in Hormuz and the effects of it, which may continue.
Economic effects.
And
Arun, that's because of terrorism.
This reverse globalization.
Exactly.
Or isolationism, if I can call it.
If you notice, who are the leading powers of the world right now? Between the Americans, it's a right-wing Trump. Italy has a right-wing leader. Netherlands has shifted right-wing. The benefits of globalization and outsourcing have led to the emergence of newer powers such as China. And I think that's not acceptable to the Americans.
Welcome viewers to another episode of the podcast of Chakra Dialogues Foundation. Chakra Dialogues Foundation, as you are aware, is a Section 8 not-for-profit company focused on nation building. I am Commodore Arun Golaya, and with me today I have somebody very, very interesting. And I say this not just because he's my classmate from school, but also because you are one of the few people, Karan, who have been at the intersection of finance and geopolitics. So, I mean, that's a unique space which you occupy. Mr. Karan Datta, of course, needs no introduction. Best known for being the Chief Business Officer for the Axis Mutual Funds, where you took it from here till here. And before that, the Goldman Sachs. And so he's been in finance all his life. But as I mentioned, the more interesting part is that he is examining a field which not many people are, which is the intersection of geopolitics and finance. And he's also a very, very ardent sportsman. Not only golf, but also long distance running and sprinting. And we're talking about at that level.
Trying. Thanks so much, Arun, for inviting me. Very, very kind of
Pleasure having you here, Karan. And I think given your background and given the introduction which I gave about you being at the intersection, I think the questions suggest themselves. The first question, of course, would be, anybody who is watching their portfolio right now would be worried about the impact, the events, not only the Russia-Ukraine, but also the ones which are ongoing in West Asia, they would have on their life savings or the portfolio. But we'll come to that later. I think something which you had worked on for a long time and which you are known to be expert in is the impact of terrorism and on any nation's economy, so to speak.
That's correct.
So shall we start with that?
Yes. Thanks again, Arun, for inviting me. Very kind of you. And it was such a pleasant surprise to meet you the other day at the reunion, and then to have interviewed you during one of the events.
So this is the funny part. We've both known each other for some years now, and we've been interacting with each other, but we didn't know that we are classmates from school because we were in different sections. So we just met up in one of the reunions and we realized that.
Yeah. So that made the bond closer.
We both share a dubious past.
But like I said, thanks for inviting me. And one of the things we tend to overlook is how deep the impact of terrorism is on a nation, and in this case specifically on India, because people don't tend to realize this, but we are perhaps the oldest and the largest recipient of terrorism in the world, and we got now a 45-year track record of accepting terrorism as part of our lives.
But that has changed of late.
Exactly. So I'll come to that. But the 45-year track record is a very long track record. And then over time, it just kind of became business as usual. And then sometime in 1993, it became like literally part of our daily lives. So in 2013, Moody's did a research, like the research firm Moody's, they stepped back and said, okay, now we need to study this and figure out what does this mean for a nation. So they started.
So the research was India specific or
India specific?
India specific. Okay.
They did a broader research. They did a research which was on impact, but then they culled out specifically India because they realized that this is one of the large economies with a thriving democracy and still coming under attack. So some of the data that I'm going to share is coming from the Moody's research, and it's quite mind-boggling. That's what got me interested. But just one more point before I get into the research and what it showed up. The reason why I got interested in it is because coming from a Fauji background, my dad being a fighter pilot, we got posted in Kashmir, Punjab, Delhi, and the common thread between all these locations was the impact of terrorism as we got posted. So even in my formative years, I could see that there was something happening. I couldn't understand why this was happening so rapidly.
But you couldn't go out of the cant, for example.
Exactly,
You
you had to stay inside. And when we came to Delhi, there were these attacks that would happen: transistor bomb, ye bomb, wo bomb. Then when I shifted to Bombay professionally, Bombay came under attacks consistently. So I'll come back to the Moody's research. Now, what is really interesting, Arun, is that 1993 से लेकर 2013 is a 20-year period. पूरा 20 साल का ये कार्यकाल है. And when they started studying, they realized that India came under 6,024 terror attacks. 6,024 terror attacks. And इसमें ना नक्सलिज्म नहीं है, ना ही माओवादी attacks हैं.
So that almost 6,000 over 20 years is almost one a day.
It is one a day. And then they went further to study that what does it mean? Like, so then they started analyzing कि अगर 6,000 हुए हैं, so सबका scale एक जैसा नहीं हो सकता. So then they started putting in small, medium, large. And when they came to the large, they realized that a large terror attack takes away 0.5% GDP and 2% investment growth in the year of the attack.
That's huge.
That is huge.
That is huge.
So now I'm just going to repeat that. 6,000 terror attacks over a 20-year period, and a large terror attack takes away 0.5% GDP and 2% investment growth in the year of the attack. If a country has come under a terror attack every day, it's easy to assume that we would have had at least one large terror attack every year. And if anyone wants any proof,
we have had.
Okay, one terror. And there's an open challenge to anyone in the audience and to anyone sitting here also. There's not a single city, large city, that has not come under an attack. It's not a Delhi Bombay phenomena. It's across the nation, from Jaipur to Ahmedabad to Bangalore to Hyderabad, across the nation. When they realized that it's 0.5% GDP and 2% investment growth, that's when I put on my investment hat. Because my world is about compounding. We make wealth for investors by saying that you compound your wealth. This number gave me the opposite results. That what is happening out here to a nation if the reverse is happening, like 0.5% loss for 20 years compounded is equal to losing 1/3 of an economy to terrorism. That's how big the impact has been. So many times, I've done so many seminars, over 200 talks I've done. Every time I've started by asking the audiences, are you a victim of terrorism? And the belief is that you have to take a bullet on your chest, or you have to have a wound to become a victim of terrorism. And invariably, I kind of tell them, no, we are all victims of terrorism because the economic impact has been so large. And just to sum up the point so that it's very clear, if you look at any nation, if you look at America, they had 9/11. That was a terror attack. It hit the Americans and then it hit their growth for a number of years. You look at France, you look at Spain, you look at United Kingdom. Every year, in any year when those countries have come under a terror attack, in that year, everything is dropped off the charts. And the latest example is what has happened in the Middle East. We are sipping coffee out here. Just imagine both of us are sitting in Burj Khalifa drinking coffee and we are shooting this program. Not here but there. And suddenly a drone goes off with a bomb. That is because of a terror attack that took place in Israel in 2023. Hamas attacked Israel. Israel attacked Hamas. Finally attacked Hezbollah. Took on Iran. Iran attacked Dubai, where you and me were sitting and having coffee. So the point I'm just trying to make is that the acts of terrorism across the world have now reached a point where state-sponsored terrorism is being dismantled once and forever. And so the point is that from 2014 to 2026, in this present government, the number of attacks have dramatically reduced. It's now come down to a few hundreds, and it's come down to 100 square kilometers of South Kashmir, Pulwama largely. We've had 1 or 2 terror attacks. One was Pathankot. The other was Delhi Red Fort. There also explosives were caught. One गाड़ी escaped and so that happened. Now it has got reversed, so you can see अब देश में क्या हो रहा है. Make in India, FDI आ रहा है, foreigners invest कर रहे हैं, capital markets all time high. एक उत्साह है, confidence है. So the minute it reverses, it adds back to economies. And so there is a direct sequence, and that's what I've been studying. And even the current Middle East war, it's not a war. It is war against state-sponsored terrorism. You have to see Roaring Lion, Epic Fury, and Operation Sindoor through the same lens. Finishing state-sponsored terrorism once and for all.
I agree with what you're saying, but would you say, especially about what's happening in West Asia, comparing that to Sindoor, of course, the comparison which you said that it is finishing state-sponsored terrorism.
Yes.
But the other effects, the Hormuz has been closed because it is not, Sindoor was focused.
88 hours. Start, stop, finish.
Focused and very clear, because the problem always is how to end the conflict. So with what's happening in Hormuz and the effects of it, which may continue even after...
Economic effects.
And
Arun, that's because of terrorism. And so that's where I'm drawing the linkage, that every act of terror has deep economic ramifications.
Direct or indirect.
This way or that way.
Direct or indirect.
Ab Hormuz mein bhi jo ho raha hai, the initial start is 2023, 7th October. That in itself has a 40-year track record.
Because the problem always is how to end the conflict. So with what's happening in Hormuz and the effects of it, which may continue even after...
Economic effects.
And
Arun, that's because of terrorism. वो मैंने पहली बार देखा. Because...
So what do you think the impact of that would be in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term? And we'll also, I'm sure all our viewers would be waiting to hear it from the expert about their portfolio.
I have a completely contra view on this. The world thinks that we are in World War III, so to speak. I think we are entering the most peaceful and prosperous era mankind has ever seen. Through the pain of this war. Once this gets over, imagine what the other side looks like. Just think of, abhi to fog of war mein sab dhund hai, dikh nahi raha hai.
No, but it depends on when you say once it gets over, imagine what the world would be. But it would depend on who has the upper hand. What if this leads to the weakening of the US or isolation from all the alliances, and it lands up making Iran and possibly China stronger?
So let's address that for a minute. Let's do first principles. Should this have been a 50-year business model till now?
It should have been nipped in the bud right then.
Decades ago?
Yes.
चलो नहीं हुआ तो कभी किसी ने तो करना था. Now it's a 50-year problem. It cannot be a 5-month solution, and it cannot be without pain, because अब surgery कर रहे हैं तो काफी बड़ी surgery है. Even in the case of India, we were very lucky that it ended on a weekend in 3 days, 88 hours, start and stop, because the escalation matrix had been achieved. All India's objectives were met. We were very lucky. The next day was a Monday. If the war had happened even on Monday, the capital markets would have obviously, taken a hit.
But that would have been temporary, I think.
Very temporary. But my point on that is, there was a political decision taken. And the same has been taken by the Israelis as well. I'm not commenting on politics here. I'm purely focused on policy. I think that the policy of dismantling has happened for the first time. And whatever be the pain, whatever is the economic damage one has to go through, it's better you go through it once than suffer it every year, year on year for the next 50 years. जो करना है कर लो अभी 6-8 महीने 1 साल लगेगा. But at least you can't have the next 3 generations of youth in India seeing the same damage happen once again for the next 30-35 years.
In fact, I keep telling my children, that when we were growing up, it was almost a given thing that when you pick up the newspaper, there would be some report of some incident somewhere, whether in Punjab or Kashmir.
मैं आपको एक staggering information देता हूँ. ये जो 6024 में बोल रहा हूँ, ये 93 का है. इसमें पंजाब टेररिज्म है ही नहीं है. वो 80s का फिनोमेना था. Can you imagine what the data goes if you add that? So I'm saying that you cannot look at things in isolation.
So you're drawing a parallel between, the policy of 1,000 cuts which Pakistan imposed on us, starting from the 80s to, even before that, but 80s as a institutionalized policy, if I can call it that. Right up to till somebody said that enough is enough and we are putting a stop to it. Yeah. So you're saying that is exactly what is happening in Iran.
The world.
In the world.
I think the decisions, also there is a trend happening, Arun, out here. If you notice, who are the leading powers of the world right now? Between the Americans, it's a right-wing Trump. Italy has a right-wing leader. Netherlands has shifted right-wing.
So even if not totally right-wing, I think globally we've seen
a shift.
The right of center, if I can.
Right of center. And what are they saying? Make in your own country, stop illegal immigration, get jobs back. So it's becoming a more inward-looking world. And
so this reverse globalization, or isolationism, if I can call it that.
I would say I won't call it isolation. I think it's the benefits of globalization and outsourcing have led to the emergence of newer powers such as China. And I think that's not acceptable to the Americans. Mm-hmm. And so the reverse in that sense is also happening. So two things happening simultaneously. The Israelis and the Indians deciding to put an end to this business model. And this is not an American war. This is an Israeli war being fought along with the Americans. So you've got to see the war in correct dimensions. The Americans are not fighting for America.
Or for survival.
It's just Israelis are fighting for survival, taking the help of the Americans. And the Indians didn't need help because we didn't need boots on the ground. We had the technology, it was for everyone to see. You come from that background, you would know it best.
So let's come back to the background which you specialize in and which you know best. So what's your advice for investor? Stay invested, cut the losses?
No, not
go for gold?
No. So there is, in my world, I come from the world of compounding your wealth over decades. Let me give you some data around our industry. Now, the mutual fund industry has a 30-year track record. In 30 years, we've demonstrated funds giving about 18 to 19% compounding returns for 30 long years. 18% अगर आप 30 साल का compounding देखो, funds are up 300 times. There's not an asset class on this earth that has performed at 300. And the worst performing fund is up 150 times. And that's a 30-year track record. मैं कह रहा हूँ मेरे को तुम worst performing fund भी दे दो, it's up 150, 160 times, which is quite spectacular.
So one needs to stay invested.
So the thing in our world is Fidelity in the US did a study on who makes the maximum amount of money, and they realized the people who had died made the maximum amount of money because they just didn't touch their portfolios. And so the issue in India, or for that matter any investing pattern, is we tend to look at our portfolios very, very often and make adjustments very quickly. So in the 30-year track record, where the funds have made 300 times, there are no investors who have made 300 times because everyone has got off the station at different points in time. So India is one of those very unique nations which offers a sector base of 32, 33 sectors. ऐसा कोई देश ही नहीं apart from America जहाँ पे 32-33 sector हो to invest in. आप कोरिया देख लो, they'll have technology. You look at Taiwan, TSMC. You look at Brazil, only commodities. You look at Russia, commodities. You look at China, they don't create wealth because they don't believe in profits. They believe in scale. So the only nation that has 30, 32, 33 sectors is either the Americans or India. Finally, wealth is going to get created here, provided we just choose carefully and stay put and seek advice from time to time.
As good advice as I think anybody can get. Choose carefully, stay put, seek the right advice. And these are the most fundamental. Actually, these are all very emotional decisions. People think it's very mathematically driven. And I come from the world that it's actually very emotional. Just to tell you what happens, Arun, when you invest, and let's assume you invested 1 lakh, that 1 lakh has become 50,000 rupees. मान लीजिए,
you know which part of the brain glows red? The same part where you feel as if you lost a very close relative. So loss of money triggers those emotions in the mind which are equivalent to losing loved ones. That is why it's the need to take action becomes very, very quick. If you can somehow, if an investor can somehow stay away from that, stay away from the intent to take action, it kind of pans out well.
So the last question, if you have to give, you already said, stay focused, stay invested and seek the right advice. But if you have to give one bit of advice to each, one, the investor, two, the government as a policy, and three, specifically, and I have to ask this because, I'm from the defense, so from the defense startup ecosystem, if you have to give one bit of advice to all three, what would it be? First, to the government.
Well, the government, the good thing is that many governments have taken tremendous steps to improve the efficiency of investing. So the growth of capital markets is very sophisticated in India. I think we have one of the most transparent capital markets in the world. And that's kudos to multiple governments, not just the present government. The track record has been very, very settled. We've had a slightly bumpy ride because foreign investors have exited. Partly they haven't really settled down with a transient tax structure and a depreciating rupee. So I think the government needs to figure out how to keep capital inside India. We're allowing capital to flow out. That's not a good sign because, as a nation, we need capital. So can the government keep capital inside with some changes of rules, etc.? To an investor, my genuine advice, and by the way, my own investments are entirely in the markets, is that once you first of all, seek good advice. Don't do it on your own. That's my number one advice. Once you get advice and आपने SIP start कर दी या investment start कर दी, give it a 5-year period. Then figure out whether it makes sense or not. And let your advisor take decisions based on your risk profile. And the third and most important advice is that I think we owe a lot to the defense sector. Operation Sindhur showed that. Balakot showed that.
Till the time security is there, and you yourself mentioned about terrorism, but till the time you're secure, there can be no wealth creation.
Arun, मैंने ना multiple times ये बोला हुआ है that अगर देश ही सुरक्षित नहीं रहेगा तो आपकी capital markets का कोई relevance नहीं है. You can be the best capital markets, but if you're a असुरक्षित देश, it is meaningless. But अगर आपका देश सुरक्षित है, then your capital markets will become extremely efficient.
So no securities without security.
No security without security. That's true.
Absolute pleasure talking to you, Karan.
Thank you so much.
It was wonderful having you here.
Thank you so much.
And,
thanks for inviting me.
And I'm sure our viewers would enjoy this as much as I did talking to you.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.